All right, guys, before we get rolling today, I want to let you know that you can try YouTube TV free and get access to 85 plus live TV channels, unlimited DVR space, and game day features like Key Plays. Just be sure to record the game and then use the Key Plays view right in the YouTube TV app to catch up on all the highlights you may have missed. Plus, you can cancel at any time with no hidden fees. That's a touchdown. YouTube TV, try it free, new users only, terms apply. Cancel anytime. What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly, powered by YouTube TV. Here with Matt Money Smith, I'm Chris Hayre, and Money, Super Bowl is done. The offseason has begun. We'll start with just your thoughts on Bengals Rams and how that game ended.
Well, kind of my thought is how many teams probably watch that game and are kicking themselves for not figuring out a way how to get into it. I did not think either team was particularly dominant. I thought there were opportunities there for a Bengals squad that really didn't play great to win the game. Obviously, the Rams were a little careless with the football a couple times there. And unfortunately, the Bengals, I should say, they weren't able to cash them in for touchdowns. So, I don't know. I can't help but think about what the Buffalo Bills must be thinking, just kind of what a buzzsaw that team looked like at the end of the year. Or the Chiefs, which just it's hard for me to just reconcile what happened in that second half against the Bengals, or a Packers team that was averaging 30 points in the final 6 games of the year to score 10 against a 49ers team. It was such a strange year. And congratulations to the Rams. One thing I do like about the Rams winning it is I hope, we've talked about this before. I really hope it encourages general managers to go for it. I just think far too many are way too cautious in this league and value draft picks way too much to not recognize how fleeting moments are when you have a window to win a Super Bowl. And I applaud Les Snead and that crew for pushing their chips into the middle of the table and getting after it. And I'm that's probably what I'm most excited about the Rams winning is I hope that encourages more behavior like that with other squads.
Yeah, just think about this a year ago, Money. Matthew Stafford was not on he may have. When was the 1-year anniversary of that?
It's right around now, yeah.
Right around now. So no Matthew Stafford, no Odell Beckham, no Von Miller. And, it got a little rocky there when they acquired OBJ and Von Miller. People were wondering if this was the right move. They had lost a few in a row, and OBJ's first game was 2 catches, 18 yards, and it took Von Miller a couple of games to get going. And then you just saw them kind of start to ascend. And OBJ, with Robert Woods going down, what he did in the playoffs and even that first half of the Super Bowl, they needed every one of those yards in that touchdown. The way Von Miller was getting after that Bengals offensive line and the Bengals offensive line, man, you can't give up 7 sacks in the Super Bowl after giving up 9 2 weeks before. So I'm with you. I think a lot of teams are probably A, kicking themselves, and B, maybe they have a little hope knowing that, hey, this league, there's a lot of parity and there's a lot of opportunity. And maybe in 2022, we can be that team that now gets to Arizona next year.
Yeah, I think, just speaking to the 7 sacks, and I know a lot of people are revisiting this because, you get the film and you start to break it down. And look, I think that's something that's going to be with us for a long time. The debate of, who's the best young quarterback and who was the best quarterback to come out of that draft with Herbert and Burrow. And, Joe did not have a great game. He just didn't. He missed some throws. He held on to the ball a little bit long for, I'd say, at least 3 of those sacks where it looked like the play call was designed to just get it out. And that's what he was doing in the first half. It was the quickest release time from snap of any team in the league in any game in a half this season. And then for whatever reason, it just kind of got away from him there in the second half. I think there's so many lessons to take away from the Bengals and just kind of how they managed that game in the second half, specifically the 2-minute drive. And it's something DJ and I were talking, and he mentioned it, and it's an old cliche around the league. It's first downs, not touchdowns in a 2-minute drill. And just a waste of a play on that 2nd and 1 when he took a shot downfield and he and Chase weren't on the same page. And you just get the first down and reset that 4-down clock, and That to me, and also just know your personnel and know your defense. Keeping P. Ryan in the backfield on that fourth down made zero sense.
That it may have been even worse having Joe Mixon in on 3rd and 1.
Well, I just mean just having the way that on the 4th and 1 I'm talking about, having P. Ryan in the backfield. We had Weddle on the radio show, and I knew he was going to say it. He's like, yeah, as soon as we saw P. Ryan back there, we knew they weren't running, so we were able to commit the 6th guy into the box and could get after him. So I just think, and look, I'm not trying to second guess Zach Taylor and the Bengals, but what I'm trying to say is just that's how narrow the margin was for victory and defeat for the Rams, and how that whole thing got put together. Just again, those 2 sacks that he took back to back after the interception off Skowronek's hands, because he's just holding the ball too long when T. Higgins looked like he was the hot route and Boyd was the hot route on another one, and he just missed them. It's close, it's so close for so many of these teams. And, just speaking on the Chargers podcast, I'm hopeful that, they take some big swings this offseason and recognize, even though they didn't even make it into the tournament, how close they really are to winning a championship.
Yeah. That 3rd and 1, Zach Taylor also acknowledged that he probably should have had Mixon in, because
100%
Mixon probably gets that 1st down. And then, you talk about a game of inches. Had Joe Burrow had an extra second on that 4th and 1,
Jamar Chase,
he had Ramsey burnt, and that could have been the game. That could have been the game, but it comes down to moments, man. Like we saw it in week 18 with the Chargers. It comes down to moments, and there's certain moments that'll get you and propel you to being a world champion or get you into the playoffs. And I'm with you. I think the Chargers are a lot closer than people may realize. They weren't in the tournament, but it was that moment in week 18 where they could have gotten in, and who knows what would have happened.
No doubt, and look, what am I? I'm an idiot that talks about football, but it's hard for me to not go back and watch it over, a couple of those plays over and over, and I can only imagine how hard it is for players. When you talk to them, the greats, they remember the losses more than they remember the wins. And I know it's just, and that's what fuels them to be great. Right. So I'm anxious to see if they can do that, and take that next step. And like you said, it's inches. It's choosing somebody else, versus the choice that you made on a throw, or a defense filling a gap that you opted not to fill because you went one gap up. That's football, and it's what makes it the greatest. It's what makes it my favorite game, my favorite sport. So I'm anxious. Look, we got 8 months, 6 months, whatever it is, 6, 7 months. I can't wait to get it started again. I'm already ready for it.
I know we're 3 days past the Super Bowl. We still have a lot to talk about, though. I mean, the combine and the draft. Combine will be here in a couple of weeks, but we are in that in-between phase. So I thought it'd be cool to do a Chargers mailbag, answer some fans' questions, and we got some good ones. And I'll just go through them, man, and we can go as short or as long with these 10 questions we got.
You got it.
The first one, and we talked about this guy already. I think Tom Telesco talked about him as well. What are the chances the Chargers draft Matt is Ariaza?
The
punt god.
The punter from San Diego State.
Yeah, from SDSU, a special teams weapon for field goals too. What is the earliest round you guys would consider a punter? And that's from Bolt Up 1584.
Well, look, I'm a big believer in special teams, especially when the margins are so narrow. I think we saw games lost on special teams this year. So, or won or nearly lost on special teams. The Steelers game obviously comes to mind. So if they decide that, this is a place where we can really improve. And look, I say this with a caveat. I love Ty. I think Ty is a great leader of that special teams unit. You talk about and look, we saw it in the Super Bowl. Everybody talks about how Ty is just a great holder as well. And I've seen that in calling the games. At the same time, it's hard to ignore. He's got the worst punt, the worst net punt number of any punter in the league the last 2 years. So I think that's something that they've got to figure out. Is that operational? Is that coaching? Obviously, they moved on from Swinton. I'm not saying that's on him, but I think that's something they need to identify. And if they identify it as, hey, this guy, Ariza, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not going to pretend like I'm pretty sure that's what it's Ariza. I think it's Ariza.
It's Ariza or Ariaza. It's one of the two.
Yeah. He's a guy that's got
drafted by the Chargers. We'll know it.
Exactly. We'll know it immediately. But I have no problem zero problem drafting a punter or a kicker. Look, the Bengals drafted Evan McPherson in the 5th round. Was that a good investment of a draft pick? Heck yeah. Because that's the one thing I never understand is when teams take flack for drafting punters and kickers. What do you always hear about 5th, 6th, 7th rounders? Hey, this guy's got to be able to contribute on special teams. That's why we're drafting this player. Hopefully he'll develop into a rotational player, a good backup. But your 7th rounders, you want them to be special teamers. Well, what the heck is a kicker and a punter? They're arguably the most important person, involved in the special teams operation when it's kick or a punt. So I got zero issues in expending a pick if you believe that player is going to be exceptional.
Yeah, if you have as many picks as the Chargers have, I think you really do have to take a long, hard look in mid-rounds to see if a guy like that's available. And if you think that he's the future and you stay with the Bengals special teams buddy, the punter there, Huber, I think he's been there for 13 seasons.
Right, 100%.
So if you find a guy and identify him as being the mainstay as your punter or kicker for the next decade, why not take a swing? Because you know that he will be a weapon on special teams. And you said it, I think valuing special teams, but it has to be a priority in continuing to improve that unit, because you got the offense and we hope the defense can turn it around here in year 2 under Brandon Staley. Special teams could be the difference in games. And 11 picks. Why not 4th, 5th round? Take a swing. I wouldn't be.
I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up right now because I want to make sure I get it right. But look, let's remember what Al Davis did. And I know there wasn't a lot of success. Right? But Janikowski in the 2nd round, and he drafted Shane Leckler in the 5th. Those two guys are going to be Hall of Famers. Like, Shane Leckler is a 6-time first-team All-Pro punter, and he was the best punter in the league from basically 2000 to 2010. I mean, that's if you mean it, and look, it's like, and that's what I don't understand when people get all freaked out over you're really going to draft a punter, and it's like, well, listen, if you think he's that good, well, it's so hard to project it's hard to project any player at any position, especially when it's in the mid-round. So again, he's a local guy, from San Diego, Rancho Bernardo. I got no issue with that whatsoever.
All right, so the Chargers select 17 overall. Money, the Raiders actually selected Sebastian Janikowski 17 overall.
There you go. So that's what it was, first rounder.
Could you imagine if the Chargers drafted a kicker or punter at 17 overall?
It does not. I mean, look, what's his name? Was it Grammatica that ended up going high? And I can't remember. Not Grammatica. He was on the Chargers for a half second.
Yeah, the
Tampa took him.
Florida State. The Florida
exactly.
State kicker.
And it was a disaster.
Aguayo. It was Roberto Aguayo.
Yeah, exactly. Roberto Aguayo. And it was a complete disaster. So look, it can go. That's the case with any pick. So, if you decide that we really need to flip the field and we need a better punter, this has been an issue for us. We've had punts blocked. We've had punts returned for touchdowns. Our net punt is at 36.5 yards or whatever it was at the last 2 years. Yeah, I got no problem with them whatsoever.
All right, let's roll through these. What are the chances of us keeping Mike Will this year? That's from It's Mike Kike. Mike Will could be a franchise candidate. He could get a long-term deal, or he could walk.
Well, I think it's going to be that puzzle, because I would be floored if the Browns, the Bears, the Raiders. I mean, there are teams that I believe are going to make the Texans that I think are going to make big money offers. The Jags for Mike Williams. I 100% believe that to be the case. I will not be surprised at all. So I think, to me, the most likely, this is what they've got to figure out. Are they franchising? Because I think they're going to use the franchise tag this year. Are they going to use the franchise tag on Mike Williams, or are they going to use it on Chenna? And look, those are two big numbers for, it's a defensive end franchise tag, and it's a wide receiver franchise tag. So those are big numbers, but I believe they're going to use it on one of those two guys, depending on what those offers look like from other teams.
All right, next one. We all know Austin Eckler has some pop in the backfield. Is there any interest in a 3rd and 3 or less back that can power through the O-line, kind of like how Turner used to spell LT? Even Tolbert brought that heat to linebackers. From Molag Bob. And we've talked about this the last few weeks.
100%.
Back in.
Yeah, well, and we talked about it being a big back. power back. And I think that's what he's speaking to. We just haven't seen it. We have not seen that power back since Melvin Gordon left. And when he left, he took it with him. And unfortunately, it wasn't replaced. So, I get, when just look at the Saints, in the Alvin Kamara or the Darren Sproles years, they always had a hammer. They had both. And I think I think Tom Telesco is certainly going to be on the lookout for it, whether it's in free agency. I mean, just like you look at what the Cardinals got James Conner for nothing, and how good he was, and just how physical he is. And even like in his advanced age, like we saw it up close, right? What Latavius Murray did for the Ravens, like just having it. Yeah. And he looked like he could barely move, but he was just that hammer. He's a guy that knows how to be the hammer. So yes, Bob, I'm 100% with you. I think if as great as Justin Jackson's been, and he's a full service back, and we saw him break off long ones and catch the ball exceptionally, and he's great in pass pro. I think they've got to find a way to add a big physical back to put into that rotation.
Good question, Bob. All right, next one from Andrew Carrillo. If you had to guess on one big money free agent the Chargers will spend on, not counting our own, what position would it be? Right tackle, right guard, corner, edge, defensive tackle, wide receiver, linebacker, and who's that player you projected that position? If you had to, some guy who's not on the team, a big name free agent that the Chargers may throw some money at.
I mean, here's the problem is, there's corners and linemen and edge, tackles rarely hit. I'm going through the, Teron Armstead's going to hit. He's a left tackle. You're not signing him. It so depends on kind of how this whole thing squares itself away. Like, look, if Chenna gets a huge deal that they can't match because he's 25, like I'd like to see him sign Von Miller. I wouldn't mind dropping that money on just replacing that edge so you can get that secondary rusher opposite Joey. Yeah. I kind of I don't know who did it over at ESPN, but I love the idea of Mike Gesicki, to come in as that seam, as that seam tight end. I could just, the idea of him and Herbert together, I get worried about, I'm going through them now, so I don't want people to think I'm cheating here. I'm just looking at this list of PFF's top 200. I get nervous about J.C. Jackson, just with Belichick knowing the secondary like he does, that they're not interested in keeping him around. I know he's going to get a big money deal. That makes me a little bit nervous. Jesse Bates is not going anywhere. That'd be fantastic, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
He's really good.
Yeah, so I guess Stephon Gilmore's, he's lost a step, and you can't lose a step in the secondary. Carlton Davis is kind of interesting, but he's going to get way too much money. So yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, based on what I'm looking here, top 20, I think I love the idea of Mike Gesicki at tight end. I think that would, talk about a great compliment to Trey McKitty, having him come in and just give them another pass catcher. Or like I said, if for whatever reason Chenna ends up getting this crazy offer that they think is too rich, I would not mind seeing them taking a swing on like Chandler Jones or Von Miller as maybe a lower priced veteran option.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer, because you have to wait and see what happens with your own, right? If we're not counting I know that Tom, his philosophy has been draft and develop, so he wants to keep as many of those guys as possible that fit what Brandon Staley likes to do. I'm with you on tight end, man. I know it was a Pro Bowl, but it was just seeing Justin Herbert throw it to Mark Andrews a couple times.
Andrews twice.
Made you feel pretty good and like, oh man, if he gets a tight end one here, a younger guy, maybe younger guy than Jared Cook, perhaps. Maybe that's somebody you can grow with here for the next several years. So like that answer. Appreciate the question, Andrew. This is from Island Boy 2843. What does draft prep? What does draft prep look like for both media and staff within the Chargers organization? And I guess, Money, if you start with the staff, Tom's group, this is busy times for them starting really during the season.
It's a year. It's been going on. It's been going on since last year, since the draft last year. You're talking about a full complement of area scouts, especially now that they can go back to the facilities, that they can go to games, that they can scout these players in person. So that starts the second the draft ends. Tom's staff and for the regional scouts and the area scouts. So they've been building their draft research and their draft profiles, and all of that is then compiled, by Tom and JoJo and Kevin and all these guys together that are putting, all of those profiles and those research and as they aggregate it, that's how they develop their vertical and their horizontal board. The vertical board is just the order in which they have what they believe to be the best players in the draft, 1 through whatever number. It varies for teams. The horizontal based by position, and their 1 through 15 O linemen or guards, 1 through 15 centers, and so on. So that's not, they don't cram. Now, the coaches, they're just getting up to speed because, through the course of the season, they're focused on the week that's ahead. So it's hard for them to change their focus and start looking at who they might be thinking about drafting moving forward. I'm sure they're watching college football on Saturday and maybe taking some notes here and there, but they're really starting to dig in. For me in the media, my first bit of prep came with a lot of the back end because I did the NFLPA Bowl, and that bowl is that all-star game tends to feature undrafted free agent and late rounders. There's a couple guys that'll raise their hands and take a jump to one of the other all-star games and find themselves in the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl or get the combine invite, like our MVP Cole Kelly, who was the quarterback, ends up getting a combine invite out of that. So my prep started at the back end, and now is the combine. I'm flying out to the combine, I think on March 1st. Or something like that. So I'm now just getting caught up and, on some of on the top 300, basically. So I'm going through a lot of our NFL.com that Lance Zierlein and Chad Reuter, they write all the profiles. I have access to them before they're public. So I've been going through a lot of those, probably starting about 2 weeks ago, I started digging into those.
And your radio partner, Daniel Jeremiah, talking to him, he starts his prep during the season, right? And you're probably sitting next to him on the plane as he's 100%. Breaking down players, right?
100%. I can still, I can still remember watching Rashawn Slater tape and him going, he's like, it's not close. I don't know. She did say it's not close. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was the first guy that was on Slater over Sewell. He's like, look, Slater's the better player. And he got a lot of pushback for that when he first posted it, because all these people were saying that, Sewell was a once in a generation prospect that at left tackle, maybe he will be, but certainly to start the Pro Bowl your rookie year is pretty darn impressive. So Slater's on a good track. So yeah, I'm fortunate to sit next to DJ. We watched a lot of Georgia defense and a lot of Alabama defense this year flying around the country. So yes, I am up to speed on Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and all those players. So who knows? Maybe one ends up on the Chargers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think Chargers fans would mind seeing a Bulldog or two on the defense in 2022. All right, next question. Any potential cap cut candidates to give us more space? That's from QBM 24. Monday, I was looking at over the cap. I mean, Brian Bulaga, we don't know his situation, right?
I mean, I don't want to, I hate the idea of throwing guys on the street, right? But, if you're just asking us to, that's clearly, Brian's just, since he signed, he has not been healthy. And it's hard to give $10 million to a guy that played a quarter of football last year and played half the games the year prior. So that's the one that certainly stands out. I think the second one is, let me get to sorry, I should have prepped better, right?
You
jumped me with that.
I hit you with the surprise mailbag, bro.
Right. I'm trying to figure out what Chris Harris's deal looks like, because that would be the other one that I would probably, I can't remember if he did a 2 or a 3 and what he has got, if he's got one left or not. So that's all right. So here we go. I'm going Balaga at 8.2. Yeah, that's one you would circle. And that's it. Chris Harris does not have a third year. So that would be the one.
All right, guys, a quick break to let you know that you can try YouTube TV free and get access to 85 plus live TV channels, unlimited DVR space, and game day features like Key Plays. Just be sure to record the game and then use the Key Plays view right in the YouTube TV app. Catch up on all the highlights you may have missed. Plus, you can cancel at any time with no hidden fees. That's a touchdown. YouTube TV, Try it free. New users only. Terms apply. Cancel anytime. All right. From Big Sports Fella, given our draft capital and the money to get free agents, which of these tools should the Chargers use to revamp the defensive line? And what potential defensive free agents should they sign if they go that route? I was seeing like Ashawn Robinson just stop the run in the Super Bowl. I mean, a guy like that in free agency, if he's available. Yeah. And, we talked about Jordan Davis last week, and there's the other kid from UConn. His name's escaping me. Travis, is it Travis Jones?
Yes, that sounds right. I believe that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's Travis something, right?
Yeah. Now I'm going to. So I think the draft makes more sense. It's edge players that are out there as opposed to interior tackles this season. There is one. There's definitely one. And look, we said his name around the trading deadline. And we wondered whether or not Akeem Hicks was going to come available. Brandon Staley coached him in Chicago when he was there with Vic Fangio. He's certainly comfortable in that scheme. And if they can get him on a deal that I would assume would be pretty darn affordable. I think, Akeem's a little bit up there in age. So he's 32. So if you can get like a 2-year deal for Akeem, we know Tom Telesco likes those sort of deals. That's what he did with Chris Harris. That's what he did with Brian Balaga. That's what he did with Linval Joseph. So that's probably the one name in free agency to keep an eye on. For the interior, I already mentioned the 2 edges. If for whatever reason Chen is not able to be re-signed, to go out and do another, same sort of deal, 2-year deal with Chandler Jones or Von Miller or something like that. But in the draft, I think everybody's, trying to connect the dots to Jordan Davis, and just this massive, guy that's got to be double teamed on every freaking snap he's on the field to free up Bosa and Chenna or whoever's going to be opposite him. Hopefully it's Bosa and Chenna.
All right, Christian Herrera on Twitter. What's a position of need that nobody's talking about regarding the Chargers' money? I immediately, when you said Gesicki, I thought tight end because on the surface it looks like, you got McKitty, who
Anderson,
Anderson and Parham, but maybe there's a guy who can be that kind of Mark Andrews type player. Maybe it's Parham, but maybe there's another guy out there in free agency.
I think, I think that's a good one. To me, like I keep going back to, and I know, they signed Mike Davis to a deal and Asante played outside, but like, to me, I love the idea of getting another big corner, and having Asante play the slot a little bit more, just to try to protect him from a lot of those tackling issues and injuries that he had, playing outside and being forced to support the run from there. So that's when I think, I think right guard is something that we haven't really brought up. I thought Sko did a really good job considering the circumstances last year, and Abushi was great until he got hurt, was really good until he got hurt. I don't know if he's going to be ready, what kind of shape he's going to be in. So that's probably one that no one's, really talking about. Those are the ones that jump out at me. But I think, as I mentioned, tight end, when we were talking free agents, that's probably one that not a lot of people have brought up.
Yep. All right. A little bit of a throwback question here. 2008, if Rivers and LT aren't banged up and the Chargers beat the Patriots, do they win that Super Bowl? That was a good team.
What were they, 14-2 that? No, that wasn't the 14-2 year. The 14-2 year they lost at home.
Yeah, I think didn't they catch fire at the end?
They did.
Yeah.
And that was the game they knocked off the Colts in Indy, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think wasn't that the Rivers playing on a torn ACL?
LT didn't play.
Yeah.
Rivers played on the torn ACL. Boy, that's a good question. They won the West. I'm looking it up now. They won the West at 8. No, that's not that year. That's I don't think that was that year.
It may have been. Didn't they win? They beat the Broncos. I think it was like a win and in situation.
Right. Okay. So it's 2007 season, 2008 playoffs. So the Chargers go 11-5. That's exactly right. And they knock off That's what I was saying. They go to Indianapolis. They beat Peyton Manning 28-24. Rivers tears the ACL, and they're in that game until about the early fourth quarter. That particular game against the Patriots, and then the Patriots end up going to the Super Bowl, and Eli Manning's Giants, end up knocking them off. Do they win the Super Bowl? Man, that Giants front was nasty. And Phillips,
they were good.
Not the most mobile of quarterbacks, but you got LT to run right at him. So it's a great hypothetical. I mean, it's, unfortunately for the Chargers, boy, talk about two injuries that came at the worst time. That was something.
And that's just kind of what the league is each year, right? If you catch fire and you're healthy, you can do a lot of things. And we saw with the Rams kind of catch fire at the end of the year, and the guys that they brought in were healthy, and Stafford played really good ball. So yeah. I don't know. I think that team, and then the 14-2 team too, man. Like those are a couple opportunities there to hoist the Lombardi. And
that was the David Tyree year, by the way. That was the 17-14. It was the year that the Patriots would have, been the undefeated team to win the Super Bowl and join the Dolphins, and instead it was the Tyree catch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I get it. It was a weird Super Bowl. It was super fluky with that catch, but that Giants defense, man, it was so freaking good. So good up front with Strahan and Tuck and that whole crew. So yeah.
All right, a few more. What's more likely? Extend Mike Williams and then draft interior defensive line or DB in the first round, or you fill those defensive positions in free agency and you go with a wide receiver in the first round. I'm not sure if you go with a wide receiver either way, right? Because I feel like regardless, Palmer, I feel like showed us enough that he could be the 2A to Mike, or maybe even be the 2.
Yeah, to me, I think it really comes down to where they're at with Keenan, right? Because he signed through 24. So I think it's, kind of like, how do we feel about him right now? Is he someone that we think is going to be playing at an incredible level in 23 and 24? Or are we starting to see some regression and some fall off? If that's the case, and we don't know if Mike will stand around because it's such a deep receiver class, and you could end up having, because of quarterback need at the top, who knows if there's going to be a run on quarterbacks. If you could see Corral and Pickett and Howell and Willis and all these guys go ahead of you, we've said it. Tom Telesco is the best player available guy. Yeah. So if he's sitting there and all of a sudden, you've got Drake London or Olave, or like one of these guys that he, probably not Olave. I don't think that would be, one of the guys that he would go with. But like if Drake London is just sitting there, I could see him starting to kind of do the calculus of, okay, we didn't expect him to be here. We didn't expect Treylon Burks to be here. I think Gibson is the guy, or Wilson is the guy from Ohio State. We didn't expect him to be here, and they're the 7th rated player on our board. That's the kind of scenario where that would come up. To me, I think a wide receiver is a little bit more of a luxury pick right now for this team that's ready to win a Super Bowl right now. But you got to be, I've heard Tom say it too many times. You're not drafting for 2022. You're drafting for the next 10 years. Yeah. So that's why either of those scenarios could happen. And I would not be surprised. But if I were to answer the question, I would guess that it's more likely they draft a corner, a tackle, or an interior lineman, because there's really good ones that are going to be available at 17.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off what you said, they didn't draft Joshua Palmer for 2021.
Third round, yeah. And he's a third rounder, and he looked great when he was, when he had to fill, when he had to start, he looked fantastic.
Yeah. So like, that's an example of, hey, we drafted a guy we see potential in a couple years down the road. So
Keenan was a third rounder.
Yeah. I mean,
so
Tom knows what he's doing in that wide receiver position in later rounds. Do the Chargers have any plans to stop wearing the color rush jersey? I threw this in because you're a uniform guy. When I want to buy one, but have seen on a few social media posts that the jersey could go away. I'm not sure which one Camp PC is referring to. Is it the Royals?
Yes, the Royals aren't going away.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any chance they're going away. Because
I would wear any of them anyway, even if they did go away. I would wear the Royal.
Who was it that sent that question in?
At Camp PC on Twitter.
All right, so Camp BC. Here's what I would do. This is just kind of my. If I had to do it, and I'm not telling you, I'm not a big jersey guy. I'm a sweatshirt guy. Like, I would much rather have a Chargers hoodie than I would a jersey. I just don't think jerseys are that comfortable, and I think they look kind of weird. But when we're at the stadiums, that's what we see. You want a jersey? How about this? Get the Royal and just throw number 14 on it and rep Dan Fouts. That way you don't have to worry about it. It's a throwback. It's the color that Fouts wore, and you're good. Or that's the way I would do it. But there's nothing wrong with throwing 10 on there as well, because it's such a cool color. So if it were up to me, the Royals are going nowhere. It's my favorite shade of this may be blasphemy. I love the powders, but man, I love the royal blues. I love them more than the navies. It's my favorite shade that they wear. So it's up to me. And I do have John Spanos' ear on these things, at least in the fact that I'm yelling at him all the time about, hey, I want to see the Royals now. I want to see the gold pants. I want the lightning bolt on the pants. I don't want any piping. I just want the lightning bolt by itself, like things like that. I say to him all the time. He laughs it all off. But I am invested in the Royals, CP. So go ahead and get one.
Yep. Not only is he the voice of the Chargers, the unofficial uniform advisor to John Spanos, right?
Way unofficial. Way unofficial.
All right. A couple more that just came in from David Rainey. What players do you see as potential breakout candidates, and how will their contributions elevate the Chargers to get to the next level? It's a good question.
First one that comes to mind is McKitty, just because I saw just incredible growth from him through the course of the season, and he's such an impressive physical player. He's someone who can get nasty when he's attached, and he's someone who's got a lot of athleticism. So to me, that's one that's the one that I think of immediately. Second, well, I thought Nas had a nice jump this year as well. So, I would almost like to see Nas take another step and just kind of continue to grow in that role. There's some hiccups out there, some bad angles, particularly some angles that he's taken that he can clean up. But I felt like there was a really good jump from him. We already talked about Josh Palmer. I think those are the ones that kind of all come to mind.
Yep. And then, just to piggyback off that, Davis Lettieri, do you see any second-year players earning a bigger role in their positions like Webb, Neiman, and others? You mentioned McKitty. We mentioned Palmer. Nick Neiman was great on special teams this year. Maybe we'll see a little bit more at the linebacker position, no?
Yeah. He's a guy that's got a nose for the ball, and that's important at that position. The one, and it just popped into my head, and I don't know why it worked out this way, but I like the way Brennan Hymas looked in preseason, and he just got no reps. So I don't know what was going on in practice, considering, there was certainly a need at tackle. He played a ton at tackle at Nebraska. He played interior. They felt the need to go out and sign Sko. So I'm not quite sure what was going on with Hymas in practice, but that's a player I'd like to stick. You know who else, by the way, that we have not brought up? Brady Fehoko.
Yeah.
That's
a good one.
There you go. So not a second-year player, third-year player, but I think Fajoko's in line to make a jump. I thought he played great when he was put in.
Frederick Jorgensen, we kind of talked about this. You talked about some of the defensive players who would be the number one on your list to sign this offseason, and I think that all kind of depends on what the Chargers do with their own guys and then kind of figure it out. But I think some of the edge players that you mentioned would be a real nice fit for the Chargers.
Yeah, and again, that's in the case, and that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that Chen is a hot name. That there are teams out there that are in need, because every team needs edge, and that Chen is going to get an offer. Is going to get a big number. So, like I said, I think if you're talking about need, Akeem Hicks comes to, and just kind of the style of free agent that Tom tends to sign. We just have not seen a lot of huge money splashes outside of the O-line. And I think, when you have a quarterback that's as valuable as Phillip Rivers, when they signed Russell Okung to a big money deal that's as valuable as Justin Herbert, when they signed Corey Linsley to the richest center contract in the league. That's one place where you see splash, where they have thrown a lot of money around. But outside of that, it's kind of been this, let's wait for the second wave of free agency and find that value. And let's not hamstring ourselves to one guy when we don't know necessarily how he's going to fit into our locker room, into our culture, into our scheme with our players, and why is his current team letting him go. So that leads me to a spot where, maybe it is Akeem Hicks, maybe it is Stephon Gilmore, maybe there's value there, and that's the sort of route they end up going down.
Mark Page, what have you heard about the return to Chenna? We've talked about that. Is he likely to remain a Bolt? I think a lot of Chargers fans want to see Chenna back, especially with what he did in Week 18.
I don't think there's any question they want him back. And I think, again, you credit Chenna. He bet on himself. I would be absolutely floored if the Chargers did not offer him an extension last year, that was in step with what his production and what his future ceiling, was kind of in step with. And he's just like, you know what, I can do better. I'm finally going to start. Let me get after it. And he made himself a lot of money.
You watch The Sopranos? Did you watch The Sopranos?
Oh, yeah.
It's my brother. Let's just end on this. What happens to Tony Soprano in the final episode of The Sopranos? He's just being a smart aleck, but,
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, it's death, right? That's just what I've always assumed. I assume that whole place explodes and it's over.
The onion rings, Meadow, parallel parking.
Exactly. Why else end such a great series? So to me, that was always my thought, is when it went to black and Journey's playing, I'm like, yeah, they're dead. And they just didn't want to show it.
Did you see the commercial with Meadow and AJ?
Yeah.
That's
funny. Yeah, a little electric action. That's funny.
All right, that was fun, man. We'll do more of these throughout the offseason. It's good that people are so interested in what's going to happen here 3 days after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no doubt.
For football will really never go away. So we'll see you next Thursday for Chargers Weekly. For Matt Money Smith, I'm Chris Hayre.